Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues now. And make sure to stay tuned to catch me, Mike Gallagher, coming up at 9, only on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Is Facebook going the way of MySpace?
Oh.
We're going to talk to Daily Caller tech writer Eric Lieberman momentarily, but...
yeah, they had a bad day yesterday.
Yeah.
How bad was it, honey?
The worst in...
stock market history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$119 billion in shareholder value evaporated, about 19% of market cap after the hammering that Facebook took per a mediocre earnings report.
Yeah, and it's, this is Facebook's fault. I mean, they have already disabled 1.3 billion fake profiles over the last year, but the company's attempting to solve the problem by using artificial intelligence tools to spot impersonators, but they built a platform that I think's well above their ability to monitor it. And I say that because I want to introduce you. Justin Turnley was a police officer gunned down in the line of duty. And somebody a few days later created a fake profile using all of his information.
I couldn't believe that somebody would stoop that low. They had created a Facebook profile page stating that he was married, that he was from Iowa, and that he was currently working at the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. Our response from Facebook has been zero.
Yeah, and it took almost 2 months to finally bring that profile down. Another mom, a woman, Brandy Beckham, she has twin daughters, and somebody else took the identity of her children's.
She changed their names, their birthday, saying that she adopted them, that we died.
I mean, it's just, I didn't realize how many fake profiles there were out there.
Yeah, I mean,
people stealing it. There's politicians who've had their images stolen, and
the landscape is interesting. I mean, in terms of sort of as you're talking about the piracy of other people's intellectual property, as it were, personal information. I've got the new landscape in Europe with the data protection law that took effect in May. But I think there's perhaps more fundamental problems at Facebook, and the Wall Street Journal, I think, starts to get to it in their op-ed when they suggest that the real problem Facebook faces is how to deliver reliable, engaging content to users when the company lacks any discernible editorial expertise. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Eric Lieberman, tech writer for the Daily Caller, dailycaller.com. Eric, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yep, thanks for having me on.
So first, Mountain View closes down Facebook's lunchroom, and now this. What do you think some of the structural problems, if you think Facebook has structural problems, are? Is the Wall Street Journal getting to the heart of it?
I don't know the specific report that you're mentioning, but I think it's a confluence of many, many different factors. You could say that Facebook is being overly cautious, and they warned their investors that their profit margins were going to be suffering maybe more than they had to, and that kind of scared investors. You could say it's because they're spending a lot of money on content moderation, whether it's political advertisements or it's terrorist use of the platform. Mark Zuckerberg said earlier in the year that they're actually going to lose money on political advertisements because they now want to moderate the platform so much more. So they're hiring thousands and thousands of content moderators, both internally and contractors. So I think it all depends on what we want out of Facebook. Do we want Facebook to be a platform with a free expression ethos, one that doesn't crack down on certain content, one where anything goes? It's kind of like a Wild West, but it allows free speech. Or do we want it to be cleansed of certain content that we see as bad, like the two examples you mentioned before? So I kind of sympathize with Facebook a little bit because I think they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, we are correct that they might have dug themselves in a hole by not really foreseeing some of the consequences that have happened. But I think it all depends on what we want to see out of Facebook.
Well, how are they monitoring Facebook right now for, to pick out fake news and fake profiles?
Well,
or do people just self-report?
Well, yeah, it seems like it's a combination of both human content moderators and algorithms, which both have their own flaws because there are trillions of pieces of content on the platform with billions of accounts and profiles and pages. So it's really hard for humans to be able to catch everything that is deemed as bad. And then there's also the factor that not everybody has the same definition of what is bad and what should be taken down. So you have people on the right complaining that their content is being taken down unfairly, and they mostly have a good point. And then you have people, usually on the left, saying that there's too much stuff on there that should be taken down, and Facebook is trying to find the middle ground, and it doesn't seem to be doing it properly, or there might not be a perfect equation for them to take down content at the right level.
You mentioned, we have to decide kind of what we want from Facebook, and Facebook needs to decide, what it's going to be. Is it more like a traditional content company, or is it something different, some sort of hybrid? Regulators also are going to be impactful here with the scrutiny Facebook is under, as Mark Zuckerberg's been before Congress and the EU and other governmental bodies. What are some of the regulatory challenges Facebook faces and sort of the gathering regulatory storm they may have to endure?
Well, I hope Facebook can self-regulate themselves properly so the government doesn't have to step in.
Yeah.
When it comes to the government, they're not always the best at tech specifically, and sometimes
you don't say. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes they just throw a bunch of ideas at the wall and hope one sticks, but that ends up having adverse consequences that we won't be able to foresee, but will almost surely happen in some certain way. So I don't really trust the government to regulate Facebook because Facebook can't even figure out themselves perfectly. Why do we think the government will be able to figure it out? They're not in the offices. They don't understand how most of that stuff works. So when you hear a lot of congressmen saying we need to regulate Facebook, they don't really know how, and they use vague language. And I think it's just as dangerous as Facebook keep attempting to self-regulate themselves.
No, I agree with you. I guess my question is, if you're at Facebook and you're trying to do a threat assessment, we need to do something in this area before the government decides to. Is there something the government politicians are telegraphing, maybe something on the order of what the EU did with that GDPR, data protection law, that Facebook is particularly sensitive to because they want to self-regulate before the regulators get their hands on them?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I've spoken to people who are connected with Facebook, and they say they would like competition. They don't really like all the attention on them because there's plenty of other tech companies that have equal, if not worse, data scandals, whether it be the Wall Street Journal report that Google lets outside parties scan our Gmail. Yeah. So I think Facebook definitely deserves a lot of criticism, but they don't mind if there are other people get in the game because they kind of see this as the whole magnifying glass is on them. And so I think usually U.S. government is a little more reluctant to regulate compared to Europe. But when we saw Europe pass the GDPR, which I think is a mess of 500 pages plus of a law, I think people in America are like, oh, we see that. Maybe we can do a dumbed-down, smaller version of it, whatever that looks like. And I think that's a little going too far. So I hope Facebook can figure it out. And I think the threat of regulation puts the fire to their feet to address these concerns. And I think that's what contributed to part of the Facebook stock market yesterday.
Yeah. Speaking of that, do you think that historic loss at the stock market yesterday, do you think Mark Zuckerberg's going to have to resign or maybe step down, or will this blow over?
So last time, I forget exactly when it was around a few months ago, Facebook's stock market took a big hit as well, and people were like, this might be it for Facebook. And I said, no, this is all going to level out. The Facebook, just like the rest of the stock market fluctuates, this will fluctuate back up. Having said that, this was a huge hit, of course. I still think Facebook will bounce back, maybe not as quickly, maybe not to the same level. So I don't think Mark Zuckerberg will resign. I don't think he should resign. This is his creation, so he should also deal with the problems as well as the benefits that Facebook brings. I think he's best tasked for continuing to lead the company. I think the idea that he should leave the company is not a good one.
He is Eric Lieberman, tech writer for the Daily Caller, dailycaller.com. Eric, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your insights.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.